This video is about traveling for personal growth, but before I get to how to do it, I want to tell you why you should be. Ooh, I don't like to should people. Why you need to be traveling for personal growth. Now, if you're a typical American with paid time off, you might get 2 to 4 weeks of vacation per year. And if you are one of those crazy people who likes to see your family for Christmas or Thanksgiving, then that might leave you with 1 to 2 weeks per year for travel. So why should you use that time for travel and not just vacation? Oh, wait, is there a difference? I think there's a difference. Vacation is when you're just trying to get away from your life and not be stressed. Travel can honestly be kind of stressful sometimes, but it's the type of activity that expands your mind by getting you immersed in a different culture. So usually the honest pushback about travel is it really worth my time and my money? And thankfully this is a long format video, so I can give you my full honest explanation. Yes, it is, or sometimes maybe it's not. The honest opinion I have is that travel is risky. You have to risk your time and your money before you even know what reward you'll get on the other side of it all. And if that reward is just some cool photos to flex to your coworkers or on Instagram, then no, it's not worth it. It's actually a waste of your time. And yet I still choose to travel regularly. It's because it changes me every single time. In my normal life, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about my past international trips. I think about how I felt in Paris, carefree, flirty, and thriving with the love of my life, walking those cobblestone streets and feeling the French joie de vivre. I think about my family in the Philippines and how tight-knit they are, how there's multiple generations living under one roof. And I think about American culture and how we all want McMansions, even though there's a correlation with house size and depression. And now that I'm freshly back from Italy, I think about Rome and Florence and Venice and how what was brand new to me was ancient there, and how charming it is to see something that has lasted centuries or millennia and been appreciated, like architecture or art or just the city as a whole. What is it about old world charm that is so romantic? The question you might be asking yourself is it worth the time and the money it takes to travel, especially traveling internationally? And if you ask me, someone who's been on multiple 2-week international trips, then I would say very much yes, as long as you let it change you. So travel costs your time, it costs your money, but a third cost that a lot of people don't think about is the sting of reality when you return from your trip. So 2 weeks ago, I returned from Italy feeling depressed. I was absolutely bummed. Like, I so looked forward to traveling to Italy. That had been on my bucket list for 14 years. And scratching that off, sure, I am grateful, but it also made me kind of sad about my regular life. And not because Italy is better, which is arguably true, but because I realized I formed a normal life that I didn't really love as much as I thought I did. See, the last few years I have formed such a safe and comfortable life, and maybe you can relate to that. Maybe it was the pandemic that spurred that shift in you. Maybe it was a life change. You know, sometimes you get married and you stop doing so much fun stuff because you're trying to, pay a mortgage, which is fine. That's responsible. Or you have kids and then you have to prioritize the kids. That's responsible. None of that is bad. But oftentimes you'll travel, and from that high you return to your normal life and it feels like a low. And I realize that low is a result of me not being risky enough in my regular life. See, travel is undoubtedly risky. It is not super comfortable and it is not super easy, but nothing that expands your mind is easy. Succinctly put, comfort kills. When I got home, I realized I need to make some sweeping changes to not feel that biting sting every time I return home from a trip. And it's not that I've lived a completely regrettable life. I have made some really great decisions over the last decade, and I am so happy about the life that I have now. But I have made a more comfortable, safe, and small life over the last few years that isn't satisfying to me. And I realized that because of travel. When I first landed in Italy, I remembered some old uncomfortable feelings associated with travel. It can be so easy to recall travel memories with exactly one emotion, joy. And that old friend was there, but so were some other feelings like anxiety, confusion, embarrassment over the language barrier. And those emotions serve a purpose too. They're there to remind me that I did step out of my comfort zone and try something I've never done before. And if I hadn't felt those emotions, then I would know I was at a place that was still catered to me and within my comfort zone. I want to remember the slight embarrassment I felt when learning how to pronounce the normal Italian greeting, which is buongiorno, by the way, and not buongiorno. I want to remember the feeling of being lost in a new city, and also that feeling of intrigue and wonder as I wandered the streets. I want to remember the frustration of trying to figure out where to eat after a very long travel day, just so I can remember how silly that emotional escalation was, because I did eventually find, 1,000 restaurants. And I'll always remember the good times, like gazing up at the Duomo for the first time, how ornate it was and how delighted I was by the maximalism expression there. Or the soft smiles from Italians as I tried to say a few words in their language. I'll always remember the texture of those chunky stone roads and the smell of a rich bolognese sauce in a local osteria, or the excitement of wandering through this dream come true trip with my husband, living la dolce vita, as they say in Italy. So in conclusion, yes, travel is worth your time, it's worth your money, and it is worth that initial sting of coming home and realizing that there are pieces of you back there that you want to bring with you into your normal life. So I encourage you to book the trip, the one you've been dreaming about for a long time. If you can't afford it today or this year, start saving for it with a goal of going on a certain date, because the you that will be on the other side of that trip is so worth the time and the money. Now that I've convinced you that you absolutely should take that trip, I want to give you 5 tips for how to travel for personal growth. The first one is to pack light. This seems to be a very controversial tip, but trust me, the lighter you pack, the more you're going to experience the location you're going to. There's this undeniable connection between what's going on with the stuff you're bringing and how open you are to new experiences. It's like they say, you can't receive things when you have a closed fist and you're holding on tightly to something else. The more of your comfort zone that you're bringing with you in your luggage, the less open you are to the experience that you're stepping into. So I encourage you to travel light, and if you want more tips for how to pack for stylish outfits while traveling light, then let me know down in the comments that you want that, and I'll make a video about the travel capsule wardrobe system that I use. Travel tip number 2 is to learn before you go. Do your research so you know what opportunities exist there for you to explore. For me, I love museums. It's actually a problem. They have to pry me out when it's time for the doors to close. So I will always prioritize a world-class museum over probably any other tourist activity. But do your research on the things that matter to you, and don't worry about thinking, I'm gonna learn too much and then it's not gonna be fresh when the tour guide or museum docent explains, because they do not have the same information as what you're going to research. So you're going to get a wider breadth of opinions on the place that you're at or the event in history. It's actually going to make it a much richer experience if you have some background to it before you go. Number 3, organize your itinerary based on the neighborhood and not the priority list that you have for things you want to see. A lot of tourists make this mistake when they go to New York City because they don't realize how vast Manhattan really is. So you don't want to be someone who goes up to Central Park and then takes a long cab ride down to the Brooklyn Bridge and then goes back up to Times Square and then goes back down to Battery Park. You don't want to be doing that. The less time you're spending in commute to places, the more time you're spending actually enjoying the experience of your trip. So organize your itinerary based on the neighborhoods. Number 4, journal your expectations, your curiosities, your questions. This is really going to enrich your trip. Before you even go, take out pen and paper and journal what you want to take away from this trip, what questions you have unanswered, what observations you want to make, and what things you want to see. Before I went to Italy, I was wondering, do Italians really drink espresso every day? By the way, the answer to that is yes, some of them do. And that is a habit that we actually ended up bringing home with us. I'm very grateful for that. Number 5, and this is a big one. Take photos, but make sure you're still making memories. I could probably do a whole video on how to capture good travel photos as an amateur, and let me know if you want those tips. But so often I see people wasting their travel experiences just trying to capture the photo, and I know that's not what you pay the money for or use your vacation time for. So make sure that you're still making memories, and that is the priority. The main thing I try to keep in mind when I'm traveling and I'm distracted by taking photos is that it's not about those photos when you get home, it's about the experience in the moment. Nobody has good stories if all they're doing is looking at their camera or their phone the entire time. So keep the main thing, the experience of travel, the real priority. When we were in Italy for 2 weeks, I captured a total of 6 selfies of us, for the grandkids, because it doesn't really matter what we look like in front of every famous monument, and we saw a ton. But it's a waste of experience if all you're doing is trying to show that you were in fact at this monument. I think 6 photos is enough to prove to my grandchildren that I did in fact go to Italy. Now don't get me wrong, I did take a lot of photos to capture as well, not only because I'm a content creator, but because I love making photo albums when I get home to relive those experiences. But make sure that the present experience is the priority, and do that by focusing your efforts on which photos you really care about and which ones are probably not that important to take. The main benefit of travel is how it changes you deep down in your soul, and the photo is just a shadow of that lived experience. Always remember what matters most to you and why it's worth the time and the money to travel. And by gosh, I hope that I've convinced you to take that trip. Usually this is the time that I tell you related videos of mine to watch, but because this is my courageous new foray into travel content, I don't have a lot to offer here yet, but if you'll let me know in the comments that you'd like this type of video for me, I will know to make more in the future. For now, the one video I have of travel that I really love and think you'll enjoy as well is our ultimate Southwest road trip that we took a couple of years ago, and I hope that you'll enjoy that video next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week with a brand new video. Until then, take care.